Quick reminder, guys, follow us on social media. We get some behind-the-scenes content coming out there. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Help UCSS grow as big as it possibly can. Let's dive in, though, guys, with the latest in the Browns search for a defensive coordinator. There were 14 open defensive coordinator jobs this cycle. 13 have been filled. The Browns are the last team to fill its defensive coordinator this offseason, but the Browns are down to 3 finalists, and they are currently conducting in-person interviews over the next day and a half. They did some on Sunday with these 3 candidates. Jason Tarver is currently the Browns.
Mike, this is our only picture. We're stuck looking at the brother-in-law with the head coach, the son-in-law.
I'll change the picture tomorrow.
Jeez.
I thought it was a good picture. Todd Monkin holding the helmet.
Yeah.
But the 3 finalists
Telling,
for the
though, isn't it,
defensive
Bull?
coordinator position.
Yeah.
Telling.
Sorry.
Are Jason Tarver, the current linebackers coach for the Cleveland Browns. He is a former defensive coordinator in the NFL. Cory Undlin also is a former defensive coordinator. He's currently the Texans defensive pass game coordinator, and Mike Rutenberg, who was with the Falcons defensive staff last year. Monkin's an offensive guy, and I want to start with you on this one as a guy who played defense. We know Monkin specializes on the offensive side of the ball. With Stefanski here, he gave full reign to Jim Schwartz to coach the defense. That was his entire side of the unit. Do you anticipate whoever Todd Monkin hires this cycle to get full reign of the defense like that? And if that's the case, how important is it for Monkin to nail this hire?
Well, I think you got to play it by ear a little bit. It's just basically, if there's a younger, inexperienced guy that they end up getting where they don't have any experience calling defenses or they don't have any experience, just putting together an entire game plan and executing it, sure, he might have a little say-so. And I always say the head coach automatically has the last say over everything in terms of the head coach can come to the defensive coordinator in a 4th down or pivotal 3rd down and say, hey, listen, we need to bring some pressure, or hey, give me your best blitz here, or hey, let's back off. Let's play coverage here. But for the most part, they just let him do his job. So with me, I think Monkin will have a little bit of say-so, but in terms of what his concentration level is going to be, it's going to be on the offensive side of the football. Now, if it is a veteran, I think if they hire Tarver, who's a guy who's already been inside the organization, he's already knows the personnel, knows everybody involved, and has the knowledge of what Jim Schwartz was running last year and what worked best, I think it's a different story. Right now, you can see his bio, man. He's been the defensive coordinator going all the way back to 2011. He was a Raiders defensive coordinator, right? So he's done it at a lot of different places. And plus, I think what helps him, for me, I would hire Tarver. I'm going to just keep it real with you. I would hire him because he already has, the position group that is the most pivotal in terms of getting people lined up. So he already knows Carson Schlesinger. He coached Carson Schlesinger. That's going to be the leader, the vocal leader in terms of getting people lined up and understand what they need to do. And by the way, showed me a lot last year, dragging a leg around and an arm around, wouldn't take no games off. So you have that captain, dude. So I think if you give the job to Tarver, it's the closest thing you're going to get to setting it and forgetting it. Like, just do your thing. Let me worry about over here. But if they go off the page a little bit and get a young guy, they're going to have to put more time and energy in figuring out whether or not that guy knows what to do.
Go ahead, Jay.
I'm with you. I don't know anything about any of these guys. I'll be perfectly honest. I do like, the one thing I know is that there's some continuity with Tarver, and I like that. I was thinking when I was addressing this topic this morning and how I wanted to come about it, it hit me in that moment the way you had phrased it, because you phrased like the defense was, we never worried about the defense. We did not worry about the defense really for the last couple of years. There had moments where they were like, wait a minute, against, I think it was Atlanta that ran all over us. We're like, come on, fix this.
Oh, man, that was Joe Woods' era.
It was terrible. But I honestly believe that for the last couple of years with the defense being set, it really struck me this morning, this is what Jimmy did. Jimmy took the strength of our team and blew it up, because what he did ultimately chased off the defensive coordinator. And now we have a new head coach whose thrust is offense. So we took... And it reminds me a little bit of when Bill Callahan left. And I remember as we were leading up to that season, his first season gone, I had said we did 3 points three big things to look for this year. And one of my big 3 was watch the offensive line. I believe they are going to take a major step back because we have all under-prioritized what Bill Callahan meant to that unit. And that's not one position, that's a group. As much as anything like the defensive line, it's a group. And they stepped back in such a dramatic way that we couldn't do anything offensively. And we've kind of been in that abyss ever since. I'm afraid that halfway through this coming season, we're going to look back and say, wow, Jimmy napalmed our strength. And now our strength is another one of our weaknesses. So I don't know where we go from here. Continuity would be good, but I think that we're going to be having the discussion next year about, wow, we never thought about Jim Schwartz in the defense because it was so good, and now all of a sudden, the saying, you don't know what you have till it's gone. I'm afraid that we're going to be in that situation. Now, hopefully, because we have an offensive-minded head coach, which we did before, hopefully the offense will take a step forward, and they can start pulling some of their weight. But as it comes to the defensive coordinator, I just feel like as we move into the season, we're going to look back on that process, how Jimmy was publicly saying, he's so important, the new guy must keep him. And we ended up losing him. To me, the mission statement was to make a change at head coach while keeping the continuity of the defense. And we made a change at head coach, but we did not fulfill mission 2, part 2 of that mission statement in keeping our defensive continuity going. So I don't know that any of these guys are up to the challenge. Are they going to be Jim Schwartz? I don't know. The pieces are there. I like that. I don't think the cupboard's bare. I always talked about how the Bucs in 03 when they won the Super Bowl had a Hall of Fame caliber player at each level. They had Warren Sapp on the defensive line, Derek Brooks in the linebacking core, and they had 2 really between John Lynch and Rondé Barber in the back end. I think that we're getting there. Obviously, Myles Garrett is probably going to end up as the greatest ever to play the defensive line. I think with Schlesinger, and who knows about JOK. I tried to do some research this morning on JOK for a topic that we have later in the show. I haven't heard a damn thing, which is scary. But, imagine if JOK comes back to his old self and you've got JOK and Schlesinger in the middle section, and then you've got Delpit and Denzel in the back section. That's an elite defense. Yeah. So hopefully the coach doesn't mess that up, and we can continue going where we're going.
Obviously, this is a huge hire. Todd Monken's he may be a veteran of coaching, but he's a first-year head coach.
So he's never done
He's already calling the plays.
Yeah.
He's already got a lot on his plate. He needs a defensive coordinator that can handle the defense. Of course, the head coach is going to oversee on some level, but Todd Monken is not going to be able to get into the weeds on defense, especially once in the preseason, sure. But once the season starts, he can't get in the weeds on defense. He's got enough on his plate being the head coach and taking care of the offense. So this hire is huge. Like you said, Jay, to be totally honest, I didn't know any of these 3 guys. I'd heard the name Tarver because he was one of our assistant coaches.
Right, me too.
The other 2 guys I never even heard of before.
I hadn't either.
All right, now, so which one do you hire? Who knows? But I would rule out Rutenberg because he's never been a DC before. And I think you need to hire someone that's been a defensive coordinator. So I would rule out Rutenberg in that case. Now, he may blow them away. Who knows? But the other 2 guys have been defensive coordinators. Rutenberg, in fact, has never been higher than a position coach until this past season. So he'd be off the list for me based on that. The other 2 guys, I would lean towards Tarver, even though Undlin has a great track record and a great history. The reason I would lean towards Tarver is because he was here.
Right.
And you talk about, you're worried about we're all worried about the defense going backwards. Even under Schwartz, the defense could have gone backwards. We saw it.
Could have.
23 to 24.
Yeah.
And then back up 25. Defenses are very fickle. Even with a lot of good players. One guy goes out, it could change the whole thing. But your best chance of keeping the status quo, which you'd like to keep with the defense, would be to hire a guy who was one of, obviously, the top guys under the guy you unfortunately lost in Jim Schwartz. So, again, if they hire Undlin, fine. Even if they hire Rutenberg, I'm not going to say, oh, my God, what a disaster, but because I don't even know him.
Right.
But I think Tarver makes the most sense in terms of continuity. He knows the players. And we saw it. Myles Garrett was not happy about Schwartz leaving. No. I'm sure there's a lot of players on that defense. Well, at least with Tarver, it's a guy who's been here.
Yeah, there's familiarity.
That familiarity
Yep,
that they have. Now, maybe you could argue they need somebody from outside to shake it up a little bit. I don't know. But I think with the defense, you don't. And so I would go, Tarver seems like the right call.
You know what's so crazy? I think one of the things that they might be able to do too, and this is just me thinking out loud, I really, as I hear Myles Garrett talk, I think that Todd Monkin came to him and was like, listen, guys, hey, look, you guys are leaders. You guys are playmakers. You guys know what the defense is. And it is reminiscent of the way the Patriots used to play. Now, don't get it twisted. Bill Belichick is one of the greatest defensive coordinators. He's a defensive guy. He's a defensive-minded head coach. However, if you go back and watch those Patriot teams, right, it wasn't necessarily the defensive coordinator. We got Vrabel. We got Harrison. We got Richard Seymour. We got Vince Wilfork. We got Willie McGinnis,
right, but
Ted
we don't
Bruschi.
have all those guys.
No,
this team hasn't won anything, so they don't. Those guys knew how to win.
So here, but also, those guys. It's an example. It's not apples to apples because obviously those guys were champions. But I guess the point I'm making is when you have great players and you have new coaches or turnover, you're counting on your best players to be the dudes that hold it down.
You are.
You're counting on So if I'm Todd Monken, I'm going to Myles Garrett and say, listen, man, obviously you're a Hall of Famer. Obviously you want a certain level of cachet. This is your opportunity to be a guy. Hey, you want to be on the defensive meetings? Come on in here, Myles. If you want, I want Myles, I want Denzel, I want Schlesinger. I want those guys to be in there with the defensive coordinator, breaking down film, talk about what the game plan going to look like.
Well, I would hope that you're already doing that.
I don't get it with Jim Schwartz. I feel like Jim Schwartz was he's the alpha male, he's the guy.
Oh, you mean to have input?
Yes.
I don't know what I think about that.
Well, I'm not saying that you got to say, Myles Garrett, what do you want to run this week? But what I'm asking
him, things that keep them comfortable. I get that.
I'm asking him because I want some buy-in. I want Myles Garrett to be able to go to the rest of the guys and be able to explain to them, and then be able to be a guy that can lead and have an example.
It's interesting. But where are you? I'm always in the mindset.
I think coaches coach, players play.
Coaches coach. That's always been my mindset. Now, I do hear what you're saying. I know, like, there are certain offenses, and when you get to that level, like Myles has, that you have that cachet, that the coaches actually want to hear your input.
Yeah.
And I would hope that to a degree that goes on already. I know there are many systems where the quarterback is part and parcel of the game planning with the head coach.
Sure.
Right.
Like Tom Brady, trust me, when Tom Brady was in New England, Tom Brady was sitting in those, when you're devising the game plan this week, he's saying, look, I already know Atlanta runs a too high shell. I like this, I like that, I like the seams against them. Let's run this. I would think that Myles probably is, particularly with division games where he knows the personnel twice a year, I would think that the coaches would listen to his input, particularly, if the coach comes from outside of the system.
Right.
And let's say he's an NFC guy. Well, he doesn't know what the Ravens do. He doesn't know what the Steelers do. He doesn't know what the Bengals do. At that point, I want Myles and I want Denzel and I want their input to say, okay, what do we see from these guys?
We all wanted Myles to we always talk about leadership, taking a step forward leadership-wise. He took a step forward on the field, right? What I would challenge him to do is, we need you to be the de facto coach in the room for the defense.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And what we want you to do is we want you to be highly involved. Same with Denzel Ward. And I know I'm saying Carson Schlesinger, but I think he's just built different, bro. I think he's like the epitome of a team captain linebacker that only care about football, and he's not going to play around. And he's going to go out and play when he's hurt. He's going to go out and play and do those things.
Proved that.
So if they could put more on their plate and hold each other accountable, because you did say something I agree with. The coaches coach, but the players play. But the players are the ones who have to lead. They are the ones who have to lead from the front, especially your best players. And I think that Todd Monken is going to those defensive guys and saying, listen, Jim Schwartz is great, but you guys have the ability to produce. You've done it. It's a track record. It's on film.
Before we move to the next topic, I know you want to go, Mike, real quick.
No, I got someone on this.
Oh, on this topic. Okay. I am wondering if I'm the only one that read things like this. When Todd Monkin said at his introductory news conference, I didn't come here because Jim Schwartz. To me, that's a shot. I think, my hope was when he was asked that question that he would have shown reverence and respect and said, hey, and he did praise him, but I was hoping it would go like this. Guys, let me tell you something. We need Jim Schwartz in this organization.
Well, maybe he knew that was...
Maybe he already did, but one way or another, that ship hadn't yet sailed, okay? The Browns hadn't accepted his resignation yet. To me, I just felt like when he said, I didn't come here because Jim Schwartz. I came here because of the defense, because of the Browns players. And I just wonder what Myles Garrett in that moment was thinking when his new boss tells him, I didn't come here because your coach was any good. And I just felt like, wow, that seems a little divisive. Most new head coaches find the best player. Yeah. And they at least on the surface, and I'm not saying they should acquiesce to everything to that player, but you've got to vibe with that player.
Yeah, man.
And I just felt like that was kind of
like, I came here for the players.
I'm reading too much into it?
I don't really see it that way. My guess is, because he said he had spoken to Schwartz, my guess is he knew it was gone. So it's
probably.
Like, I don't care about the other coaches. He's gone. Let's move on.
I think
maybe.
I take a look at it like completely different. I look at it like, first of all, I think that he talked to Jim Schwartz, and I think behind the scenes he knew Jim Schwartz was not coming back.
He must have.
And then Myles Garrett puts out the meme, right? And he's sitting there where he's sad, like Jim Schwartz is gone. And I've always told people, hey, you need to do a better job of using the media to get points, talking points, and your messaging out there. What I thought he was doing is he was signaling to those guys who are apprehensive about change, apprehensive that the defense might change, and we're really good at what we do. It's going to be uncomfortable. Who knows? We might have a 3-4 in here. Who knows? We have a great defense. We're close-knit, and we know individually we put up production in the system. What I think he was doing is rest assured and telling them, hey, guys, don't worry about that. We're going to keep the same system. We're going to make sure that you guys are successful because guess what? We think it works, and the defense is built that way. But ultimately, I think he was breathing confidence into him saying, look, I know Jim Schwartz is a great coordinator, but I believe in you. I believe in what you guys can do. I didn't come here because of the coordinator. I came here because I wanted to coach a guy like Myles Garrett.
And if that's so, then he's empowering and he's playing to the players' egos.
Yes. Yes.
I hope if that's true and that's the case, and again, I bring up the offensive line situation from a couple of years ago. When Bill Callahan left, it was just like someone unplugged the whole unit, and they just crumbled right in front of our eyes. That offensive line was horrible.
And you know what, though, Jay, too?
I think some of that was coincidence. I don't think it happened
at once.
I'm not going to.
It all happened at once. Our offensive line went from. Remember the year before they weren't supposed to be that great, but they overachieved.
But like Tennessee was terrible on the offensive line.
No, but Tennessee didn't have the pieces we did. We had decent pieces.
But the pieces were going downhill. They were getting old.
Now
and we've seen it.
I'll give you that.
You said this, and maybe you can elaborate on it. You said like when you got the defense together, right? If they first few games take a step back, that's going to be very difficult. Like, if you look at the offense, there isn't much expectation there. But the problem is the defense has expectations and a standard. Yeah. And if the first 3 or 4 games something happens, they're going to automatically be like, oh, this ain't
absolutely. It. I know a lot of fans was like, well, this is a great job for a defensive coordinator. I don't think so and it might turn out to be if they do a good job, but you can really only go down.
Yeah.
Like unless the defense becomes the greatest defense of the last 10 years, the DC is going to get no credit if it's just like as it was last year.
You're right.
But if it goes down even at all,
and that would
he's going to get a lot of the blame.
If that happens too, where they play even better, that severely impacts Jim Schwartz's return to the NFL.
No doubt.
Because they'll say, well, they were actually being held back by Jim Schwartz.
Yeah. You betting on that?
And no, I'm not betting on that. But you know what? Here's what I learned. We were having conversations, some buddies of mine, and on a text chain after the Super Bowl. And it's like, okay, so at the end of every year, what did you learn? And here was my takeaway for the year, what I learned. What I learned is what we thought we knew, we didn't, because everything constantly evolves in the NFL. You can win now with defense. We saw it. And
you need a quarterback.
You can win now with a great running back. Well, I mean, honestly, you do need a quarterback, I believe, over the long haul. But like, they didn't win the Super Bowl because their quarterback played. They won because they had a great defense and a run game. Sounds familiar. Cyclical. It all comes back around. But what I would say on that note is my big takeaway was I watched two teams that weren't in the playoffs last year play in the Super Bowl. I watched one quarterback that had been given up on by 4 teams take his 5th team to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. So I think what I've learned is I know a lot less. I don't think any of us know what we thought we knew.
And it's 1 year. 1 year is 1 year.
But it's the most recent sample size we have. It's a big sample size. It's 300 games. It's over 300 games with all the games that were played. And I think, so I try to do this at the end of every year. Okay, what's my takeaway from this year? And my big takeaway was, hell, anything's possible. So could the Browns defense actually play better? Sure. Could they take a massive step back? You bet. Mm-hmm. And what I've decided is I'm no longer going to sit there with wide eyes and my mouth open going, I never saw that coming. I watched Sam Darnold win the Super Bowl.
Shock. It was a very surprising season.
It was a surprising season.
Big time, no doubt.
And so
a lot of ways.
That's why I say, not to dismiss all of our knowledge, but to kind of humble all of us and say, well, no expert before the season picked Seattle and New England. No one.
That's true.
No.
And so because of that, maybe we don't know what we thought we knew. And also, I do believe this, the NFL is a breathing organism. It changes. When the offenses were running pinball numbers, the defenses made adjustments, and the general managers and front offices made adjustments to beef up the defenses because we're going to have to stop this if we want to make it. So now I think we're at the point where defense has been prioritized, and you're seeing that in the results. You're seeing that the number 1 defense and the number 4 defense made it to the Super Bowl, while the number 1 offense in the Rams lost to the number 1 defense twice in 3 tries. So
one last
I think
thing
it's changed.
I think if the Rams had played the Patriots, it would have been the Rams and Seahawks in the Super Bowl.
I believe that if the Rams had won, the Rams would have won the Super Bowl.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. And I'm saying if the Rams were in the AFC, they would have beat. The Rams were the second best team this year.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
We mentioned Tarver. I just want to mention Undlin real quick. And Bull, you mentioned Rutenberg hadn't been in DC before. Undlin's ties to he worked in Cleveland for a while. He actually was in Cleveland under Romeo Crennel for a while. He won a Super Bowl as an assistant under Belichick. He won a Super Bowl as a defensive pass game coordinator and a defensive backs coach with Jim Schwartz in Philadelphia. And the last 3 years, he's been with D'Amico Ryans in Houston. I don't know the first thing about the guy other than like the connections.
He was the passing game coordinator in Houston
the last 3 years with their terrific
including
defense.
the year where we went down there and we suddenly couldn't throw the football anymore after Joe Flacco threw it all over the place.
As D'Amico Ryan has been the head coach, Undlin has been his defensive pass game coordinator. He's worked with Schwartz before. He's been in 3 Super Bowls as a defensive coach. He lost 1 with the 49ers when he was in San Francisco. He won 1 in Philadelphia. He won 1 as an assistant in New England before the stuff you.
That's a nice resume.
So
yeah.
I
think it's a little strong to say he won 1, he lost 1. I mean, he's not the head coach.
He was on the staff that won a Super Bowl. It's
like I said, just want to give him his
30
input. Seconds of
love
in case he gets hired. It's like, where did he come from? Well, there you go.
Does anybody think that there's a favorite?
Yeah,
we haven't heard much about
I think Undlin's the favorite.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh.
I do too. Just based off reports from Twitter.
I think the most important thing is don't try to make any significant changes to how you're running your defense. Because
and you said earlier, who knows what's going to happen? They could
Yeah.
switch to a 3-4. That'd be the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, they won't do that.
Like you're running a 4-3, and I think there's 0% chance of that
No, they're
ever
not messing
changing.
with that.
But I do think that it's important, very important for the entire season, that this unit comes out in their first 4 games and looks very similar to what we last saw when they were on the field, holding opponents to 17, 13, 10, 14. You cannot give up 27 points or 35 points in one of your first 3 or 4 games because the hardest thing to overcome is the bad first impression. And the worm in Cleveland turns quickly. And, if quickly they would turn on a defensive coordinator that was putting out a product that looks vastly inferior to what we last saw.
I do think that there is a way and there's a very easy path that you look at it that the defense could possibly be better. Now, Myles Garrett has a floor of 14 sacks. All he does is go out and get 14 sacks. He has a floor. Denzel Ward, of course, he's consistent in terms of locking guys up, even guys in the division like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Tyson Campbell.
I like him a lot.
Second year in the defense. I liked him a lot last year. Carson Sweat will get better, and then like Mike Hall Jr. injured all year, so he keeps coming back from injury. So that's another guy, and then obviously Mason Graham that you're hoping to take a bigger step and a larger step.
They also were very healthy outside of Hall last, and I personally don't think Hall's any good, but. Their key players were all healthy.
I think Hall's got a lot of potential. He flashed some brilliance when we saw him.
I think.
I don't know.
The problem is we didn't see him much.
Hurt.
I think if they thought he was that good, they wouldn't have drafted a defensive tackle in the first round.
That's true.